Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do this is because there's so much chaos all around us. Some days we worry about the pandemic, some days we worry about fires, some days we worry about elections, and if nothing else, we worry about who is doing what. And but amid all this, there are people doing very interesting and incredible work. And I've been talking to them to learn how they've been able to work through all this chaos. And one of them is my college friend. Uh, we call him Gina, Girish Nair. So, Girish, tell us about you. It's been a long time since we have had a face to face conversation. You don't seem to have slowed down at all during the pandemic. Tell us what's the secret, what you've been up to all these years, and what keeps you happily engaged in your work.
Yeah, hi Shankar. Thanks for inviting me. So as you know, I've been working on a company called Curiosity Gym, and we've been working with kids, mostly school kids, right from maybe third grade to all the way till 12th grade, and in some cases even college students, kind of trying to bring experiential learning to life. And by experiential learning, a lot of times since the past, I would say 100 odd years, in schools, it became kind of bookish learning. So rather than just getting the joy back and saying how do things work? Why does it work this way? Breaking things apart, learning from failure. Just getting that whole experiential learning piece back. Sometimes it's referred to in the typical sciences as STEM or STEAM, but it's not only restricted to that at all. It's in fact allowing kids to really understand how to solve problems, how to think of climate change, how to think of irrespective of what problem it is. It might be a local problem, might be a global problem. It might be how to design your next product, your next app, anything that kids want, right? So how do you make them start being curious? Actually, if you look at it, kids are born curious, and over time, when they start reaching about 10, 12 years, they start becoming shyer. They start being told about different rules. Do this, don't do this. You must do it this way. And that curiosity kind of just dampens. So the goal of Curiosity Gym has been to, revitalize that in a way.
You know, you bring up a very interesting point. There was a time when you and I took IIT JEE, the Indian Institute of Technology entrance, when it was a very creative experience. But from what I hear now, with 4 years of coaching, that whole experience has become uncreative. And there goes the whole experience of even trying something interesting and different. In what ways are you able to bring back that curiosity element in education or in these curiosity gyms? I'm curious.
Yeah. So what we do is uh, our whole curriculum doesn't, it doesn't go off textbooks per se. So by nature, the word Curiosity Gym, when I set it up, I used to think, okay, in Mumbai, there's what are the things to do in Mumbai? And I was looking around and I wanted to do something for the next 25 years of my life, right? Having worked in industry, in technology and management in Silicon Valley and here for 25 years, I wanted to do something completely different, kind of in my second innings. So I said, what will keep it interesting for the next 25 years, right? And so then, being a parent of two sons, I said, well, and they were all, I mean, society kind of, and this is, you would see it all in India, but also all across the world. The thing is, it's all about marks. It's all about getting admission to some college or something. And, that seemed to be the focus. And the joy of learning was kind of dissipating. So I said, what if you kind of create a space, right? So just like you go to a health gym to exercise your body, you have this place where you exercise your curiosity. So that's how that word Curiosity Gym came about. And the goal of Curiosity Gym was, I think across life, what you do is, we are all about coming to solutions. If you look at the whole education system, it's all about, this is the problem. Can you do some exercise? This is the solution. So rather than that, if you really look at a lot of the inventors of the world, right, like Newton, an apple was falling well before he discovered gravity. It had been falling all the time. It's just that people never asked, why is this apple falling in the first place? To me, that is curiosity, right? So I would argue that all of us are going through our everyday life, observing things that we are not asking why does this happen that way? If somebody hadn't invented it before us and we still saw the same thing, would we have been able to do it? Right? And what's going to be important for the kids of the future is these kind of things. Because we all know that many of the careers of tomorrow are not going to be there. Today's careers are not going to be there tomorrow. So what is going to be important is not the bookish knowledge or the knowledge economy that we all grew up with in the last 30, 40 years, but that ability to think, right? The ability to say, okay, I don't know this stuff. Let me take a step back. Let me understand the problem. It's sometimes referred to as design thinking, but forget the verbiage that sometimes is used, right? How do you have the mindset to understand the problem, then figure out a solution and then the same? So that's what we are about. When we're dealing with schools and students, our goal is to just, spread this knowledge.
Indeed. In fact, I've been seeing this all along. As you know, I got into education through the values-based or question of what is my purpose in life. And the more I got into it, the more I realized the need for changing with changing times. My question to you is, in stuffing information in people's minds is of no value anymore. Everything is
Right.
available online through Wikipedia, through Google searches and Khan Academy. You can find any information you want online. How can or what kind of careers do you expect will exist, and how can we train people for that? That's the goal of your work. What is the approach, or what's the broader approach you have taken to help people to get to deal with changing times, really chaotic times almost?
So the thing is that, first of all, we want to break out from this categorization of, and kind of society and the whole education system probably across the world has done, which is saying this is physics, this is biology, this is math. You're good in this subject, hence you're not good in that subject, right? And so you kind of train yourself in your mind as a kid that what, I like this and I don't like this. What is perhaps more important? See, all of these disciplines are actually interrelated. Okay. So it really doesn't matter that, because maths has history. Maths is there in biology, but there's biology in math, and there's physics in everything, right? So if you kind of train yourself that way, right, and you give that kind of mindset, and then it's more about what is the application, what is then why is it working as it is? Can I improve it? You develop those kind of skills, right? Which is, curiosity is maybe the first step, but then you actually give that creative confidence. You're talking about doing a series on leadership confidence and this thing, right? So this is about creative confidence. How do you get the creative confidence? Is initially you say, do you have the question itself right? And then you say, okay, maybe this might work. Maybe that might work. And then you discuss it in a group. Maybe you're not the expert even, right? But sometimes just by learning to actually ask questions, right? So one thing that we'd like to do as part of the creativity is have almost a discipline saying, can you imagine your question? Okay. So not imagine an idea, right? Or imagine the solution. You just imagine the question. Okay, what question is not asked? Imagine that. Okay, once you get an answer to that, what question is still not asked? And you keep asking that. It's kind of, and even when you talk about, we were talking earlier about what you're doing in the values education thing. In the end, you're kind of trying to understand yourself in, who you are, what you're about, all of that, right? So even in that, it's kind of asking that next question. And so, So our goal is to, just get that kind of culture to
So
help
going deeper
catalyze.
and deeper rather than going
Yes.
deeper and deeper by repeatedly asking what's the most meaningful problem that I'm trying to understand, rather than the teacher feeding a question and you giving an answer, which is
Yes,
very
and
mechanical.
it's both ways, right? It's not only deep, but it also says what else could it be affecting. So it goes breadth-wise also,
Connections
and
too. Wow.
yeah, both ways it goes.
Wow, fantastic. I've never seen this approach in action. Do you by any chance have any YouTube videos or anything that you can share? Anything that,
Yes, 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 yes. Should I bring it up?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just going to show you an example of what we do in school.
For the enhancement of learning, we have tied up with number of expert agencies who conduct various workshop and training programs for our children.
Curiosity Gym, which creates a lot of curiosity in different fields of science like physics, chemistry, biology.
Curiosity Gym is a startup in the education space. We teach in schools and colleges.
Since 2019, Curiosity Gym has been running classes at St. Mary's.
I am, of course, an alumni of the same school. We run a Curiosity Gym period in curriculum for grades 3 to 7. They come to us once a week. We explain to them and conduct sessions basically in STEAM. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
What they are doing in the class is making. They're thinking about what concepts that they learned in class, how can they apply them?
This is basically how to build a spectroscope. There are certain lines and folds that you need to follow until you get to this. You also require a CD that you insert in the slot. There are slight cuts here and here to allow the light to enter and exit into your eyes.
And we are here to inculcate the concept of learning by doing. Because we believe that only when you do, you actually learn.
Besides learning the theory in the classes, what they're exposed to is when they're given a problem, how is it that they can apply their mind? How is it that they can catalyze their curiosity?
STEAM is not just about science and technology. It's much more. It's about teamwork. It's about empathy. It's about learning to deal with failures. And STEAM embodies the basic idea of making things, DIY, do it yourself, and experiential activities.
And that iterative process of trying and things not working actually makes them learn.
This is called a balancing dragonfly. It balances with equal weight on each side. Two paper clips on each side. This is a tumbler. It has two marbles in it. So that when the level of the surface is high, it will slide. And when it's a little low, and then it will tumble.
If this doesn't happen, then what next? To get that spirit of inquiry and invoke scientific temper in students is one of the main outcomes of this class.
It is these formative years and the exposure to STEAM that allows children to have 21st century skills as well as choose their careers in a more intelligent and more practical way.
This is magnetic elevation. If you see this magnet, this and this poles repel with this. So if you see this float, this floats due to the repulsion of these two magnets and these two magnets behind over here. So it is the same thing that used the trains in Japan.
The 21st century skills are about having the ability to think, having to negotiate, working in teams.
My project is on magnets effect. This is called a cup glider. Take the two cups and put tape on it, and you have to make a chain of rubber band. I can slide how much I want till the wind is there. When we release it, the air pressure goes down, and this, with the help of the air pressure which is down, goes up.
Dear parents, what's going to be important in the future is the constant learning over their lifetime. That spirit and joy of learning itself is what Curiosity Gym seeks to impart. Curiosity Gym, imagining your question, fostering ideas, sparking innovation.
Wow. Great, Girish. That was fantastic. It gives a very quick overview of what you're trying to do. So, being curious, I have more questions than answers. First, I
Okay,
love
that's
the
good.
concept of doing it something very practical, pragmatic. Do you also include physical exercise or any kind of games and things like that, along with other things in your current Curiosity Gym?
Yeah, so we gamify a lot of things, right? It's not about exercise per se, but we may have kids sometimes. Uh, in fact, yeah, in one of the schools, we had a bicycle in the classroom, right? Because what we noticed was, you know, first of all, the classrooms are not set up necessarily in the typical classroom thing where everyone is looking at the teacher, right? So you just turn the configuration of the tables around where they're talking to each other, right? But don't necessarily have a back to the teacher, but at least sideways. So there's a group. You know, if it's only back, then of course there's sometimes chaos. So we had a bike in the thing, and then so some students made a project where the harder you pedal on the bike, there's a light that shows up, and depending on how fast you can go, and then they're learning a bit of electronics, they're learning some mechanical stuff. You have some IoT stuff in it, or it's communicating on some kind of communication this thing, because it's not connected by wires. So all of these kinds of things are how we say we gamify learning, right? So you have that in the classroom, in situ in the classroom, and of course these can't be done in one session. So they're actually working the whole term to get this thing working. And then not only that, because their friends come and they break it in the first 3 hours, then they say, okay, what do I do next to, because these are all the practical problems that otherwise kids are very sheltered from. They just think that, all the products, they have to work all the time. And then when they make it themselves and it breaks after, half an hour, then they realize, this is what, it's about, right? So these are the kinds of skills we impart.
That's great. So on an average, how many hours a week do you have the Curiosity Gym with students?
So typically in most schools, they currently give us an hour a week, right? So they carve that out from the science and maths or computer science curriculum.
And
They
it's a
give us
great
an
start
hour.
for sure. But the rest of the curriculum is more conventional, isn't it? Which means they go back to classroom teaching and classroom learning.
Yeah, in the rest, so we focus on the experiential part, purely, right? And now during the pandemic and the lockdown, when schools are doing it online, we've been able to adapt all of this stuff anyway. So without physical stuff, we still have some kind of activity, or we have some simulation platforms, in all of this. So we still keep it interesting from an activity perspective. They can still design products, using CAD or something. So irrespective of what it is, so we've been able to adapt and continue with all our schools.
That's great. My question is, as you said, it's about learning different things. In the Curiosity Gym, because they are curious, they're interested, they will do what they want to do, and therefore they will learn. But the other classes are more conventional, subject-wise, physics and chemistry and
That's right.
sociology and so on. Then maybe, how would the kids adapt to these different educational paradigms?
So we found that, and this is a question often asked to us by school administration, right? In fact, I remember being asked by one principal, will you guys be so much fun that they'll stop enjoying our classrooms? So I can only laugh to a question like that, right? Because, why should a school educator ask me, are the kids having too much fun in the class? That's the goal, right? So it really helps us when a parent says, the Innovation Hub class is on Tuesday, and Tuesday is the day that a kid likes to go to school. right? That's
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that happens to us all the time. That happens to us all, right? So, so I mean, to to me, what are we creating? Are we creating robots when we're teaching kids? Are we creating thinkers? Where is the joy of learning coming from, right? And so when you create an environment like this, then it really doesn't matter. It's like asking, I would say that, if you learn X, does it affect learning Y? Human beings are so adaptable, it really doesn't matter. They can pick up even different styles. Sometimes, a mom and a dad may have different styles, but the kid that learns to adapt to both, right? So,
That's true. That's true. So now that you've been doing this for what, more than 5 years, in what ways
yeah.
has your life changed, Girish? Because as much as you have contributed, I'm sure it has changed you in a certain way, and your theory of education and learning may have also shifted. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, sure. I think, it's been wonderful to work with kids, right? I mean, it's just been wonderful, right? And so that definitely keeps me going. And then besides that, I kind of forming a company, making sure that the team also likes to work with kids. And then it's kind of hard when you're selecting a team who are kind of trying to do things in a non-traditional way, right? Which is, it's not a ready-made product that we are trying to create. We're trying to create thinkers, we're trying to create, and I wouldn't say even create, right? We're trying to mentor, we're not teaching, right? So the whole paradigm is kind of just set the groundwork so that then the flowers can bloom, right? And
Yeah.
so, so it's been very exciting working with, very talented individuals, right? So who are much better than me in most of what they do, right? So we have people from bioinformatics, we have people from electronics, we have people from different fields on the team, and to be able to help put that team together where they are the experts, they're saying this will work, this won't work, and you kind of have debate that also, and then you see what will work on the field, yeah, and actually not be afraid to experiment. Now, a lot of times I think human beings are so worried about, oh, will this work, and will this thing, and what will this one say, and all that. So the creativity comes if you experiment, and there'll never be a perfect answer. So you experiment and you improve. That's the skill set that I think that as a team we're building, and also we seek to have the kids have that.
Yeah, as you said, in fact, as you know, I have been also working on creative leadership. And there are many times I've gone into like a tribal region in Gujarat. I went into a place called Modafafaria, and I was expecting to teach different types of dances. And the kids knew all the dances I wanted to teach. Like there were
Really?
kids who could do break dancing really well. And I said, where did you learn from? This is a remote village. They said, YouTube, sir. And then I said, how about belly dancing? A girl did belly dance. Same thing, YouTube. Then they said, do you know Bhai Bhai Sanedo? I said, no. So the kids ran the class for the next half an hour. They were teaching me Gujarati Kathiawadi dances. And it was amazing. So they learned leadership without me even trying. So
Right.
I'm really curious. That's the reason I was curious about bringing in kinesthetic experiential learning also. But I guess you are incorporating different things at different stages,
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
amazing. So what have been the challenges that you have faced when the pandemic broke out and how you had to take your whole class online? It's not been easy, right? Even for regular classes.
Yeah, so surprisingly, we didn't have too much of an issue at all. Okay, and in fact, I would say this is true of most schools around the world, and probably in India as well. Most of the ones in our this thing adapted really well. Okay, so and we were able to adapt, from everyone in the team working from home, the teachers working from home, the curriculum development, everything was working from home, and Yeah, and I think even apps like Zoom, which we are recording it now, right? They really helped in then connecting, and then of course you learn the rules of how do you do a classroom management with a team of 20 students or 40 students. Some of them don't have the camera off, the camera on, and so you kind of learn a little bit about classroom management. But even that, I think the schools have learned, we've learned, different instructors learned. Then there have been tools like breakout rooms where you still break out things into teams. So using all those tools that exist with technology. The beauty of technology is there's so many things available these days. So you can be in sometimes it allows you to do different things that you wouldn't have been able to do in a classroom. So as long as I think if one just has that positive mindset in a way, that the world isn't ending. I mean, of course, there's lots of things that are unusual going on right now, and there's nobody cares this thing, right? But if you focus on, how do you move forward? How do you move forward as an individual? How do you move forward as a team, irrespective of what's happening, right? And you kind of, I don't know, give a karma to that, right? Of just make that your mission. Happiness just comes in, and in fact, big problems become little problems, right?
True.
And so for example, some of the team members started printing things for masks for doctors and hospitals because we had a 3D printer, and so then we started thinking about those kinds of things as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that this was part of your 25-year plan to do something that you would not get bored. So 5 years are over. What about the next 20 years? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, we want to reach millions of students. Yeah, we want to reach millions of students across the world, right? Where experiential learning, learning by doing, creative thinking, design thinking, all of these are aspects, or inculcating scientific temper. So you don't take something for granted. You just you ask this thing. The other critical skill is, in fact, in today's world, there's so much information to be even. It's not only about literacy or digital literacy anymore. You got to be able to distinguish fact from fiction, or fact from biased writing. And how do you get that kind of scientific temper in students to then ask and then answer and then debate and have a discussion which doesn't become doesn't become a violent discussion, but becomes discussion that is meaningful, right? And getting those negotiation and leadership skills. So all of those things are our goal is there's fun every day.
There's no limit to what we can do. In fact, a friend from Google who works at Google actually said it, that because of the information revolution that we've been in for the last decade or two, we have a diarrhea of information, too much information, but a constipation of useful ideas or useful things to work on, understanding, wisdom, whatever you call it. So that's amazing that you're focused, and there's so much to do. There's no shortage of new things to do. How can people right now that are feeling the stress of this pandemic, do you have any suggestions for them how they can make the most of the times? Some people are actually sick, and we understand that. Some people have money and other shortages. Many jobs are not easily going to the internet. But what can people do overall? Is there any suggestion that you have on how people can find meaning in these times?
Yeah, so, I think irrespective of age, you can think about some problem and how you can help create a solution to that problem, right? And it might be a product solution, it might be a process solution, maybe you're a senior citizen somewhere and, not that, not that I would say tech savvy, or maybe some of the tools are not available to you, right? But maybe you can still have that experience and you might be able to say, based on this is a good way to approach the problem. and maybe you can impart that kind of knowledge, right? So it's for, I think each person needs to be able to find that niche of where they can kind of contribute to initially, in fact, just keep themselves happy. So that's the number one goal. Before you can make anybody else happy, you got to be, and that's easier said than not done, as you know, right? But one can argue that you can do that if you just focus on a task and doing that task right, and get that happiness in that task, right? And then the next task, and then the next task. So irrespective of how old one is or how this thing, it really doesn't matter. You have satisfaction in doing that. And then not cribbing about, well, it used to be this way 8 months ago and all that. Well, that's not going to take one anyway, right? So just move forward. Yeah.
That's very true. In fact, the likelihood that we'll go back to the old world is very low. We have to go forward to a different world. Do you have any inkling on what the new world will look like? I know this is a googly question, but
the new world is going to look like, I think the world has swung one way in, the last 10 years, maybe 5 years. And, it will come back and it will be a good world again, right? I think that the socially aware population is going to increase substantially. Mm-hmm. I think the realization of the digital divide is going to be there substantially. So a lot of efforts are going to be made to decrease that. I think, just like vaccinations, while it's taking a long time now for humanity to come up with something, perhaps the realization of how important doctors are, people who work in the pharmaceutical field are, the researchers are, all of that is going to get a lot more weightage. So I think, one of the questions you had asked earlier is what are the different kind of careers that will exist tomorrow that don't exist today, right? And, somebody was just talking about this earlier this afternoon. So even, just a few weeks ago, a taxi cab service, one of the Olas or Ubers or something, right? They've started inventing where the driver cab is segregated from the rest of the vehicle, right? Then you can start having innovations and, okay, can you even measure the temperature of the passengers and that, right? So every day, I think humanity is now going to start thinking that invention can come from everyday, from citizens. It's not this PhD working in this thing, some researcher who's going to invent. Okay, the COVID thing where everyone's been exposed to a problem where they have to solve it themselves because sometimes things can't even reach them. So they've had to do jugaad and invent for them in some which way, right? And that perhaps used to happen with human beings 5,000 years ago. Somewhere along the way, we said somebody else will do it, or only the people who were the experts, and the rest of us were the robots kind of, doing our job. But somebody else was the same. I think the pandemic is going to be an inflection point for invention throughout the world. And then curiosity, and I hope that, understanding other people. Sometimes it feels that it's going the other way in that, but I think that the balance will shift back.
Well, I really admire your optimism because I think that is necessary to go forward. If we keep harping on what's not working or what it used to be, that's not going to help. But to be empathic, to be caring, to be really understanding what are my needs, what are the things that are broken in my life, and what can be fixed. Who do I need to be able to fix the problems? And how can I help others to fix their problems too? It cannot be a one-way street. So you really summarized all that very nicely. Another question, as you correctly pointed out, the younger people, all we have to do is get them back to curiosity like they were when they were younger. But the hardened ways of teaching have dampened their curiosity. But now you look at middle-aged people who have been hardened for 20, 30 years. In midlife, I see that the problems are even worse. You were able to reinvent your career through Webvan and many other things. And now the Curiosity Gym, I was able to reinvent by giving up my older career in electronics and biotech and jumping into leadership and values-based trainings. But have you considered doing something for people in the Middle Ages who are also facing this kind of thing as like a midlife
Yeah.
crisis?
Yeah. So actually, when we set up Curiosity Gym, it was open to all people of all ages. So we used to have workshops where sometimes a grandparent and a grandchild come and do a workshop, right? And they would do workshops like, I don't know, 3D doodling. So there was a pen, and they could make some art form, right? And they can make a peacock or, this thing. So it was wonderful to have, sometimes couples would come, sometimes a dad and a daughter would come, right? So, and sometimes you just kids, from 10 years and up would come, And so the vision of Curiosity Gym was actually to be a place for people of all ages. We just focused a little bit. So to reach more and more people, we focused on the schools. But the vision is always to also be a place where people of all ages can come to learn. So if you go back to the name of Curiosity Gym, just like one goes to a health gym to kind of revitalize your health, you might go to a mall for some shopping, you might go to a movie theater for some entertainment, a beach to just enjoy nature. The goal of Curiosity Gym was to go to a place. Now, over time, it might be a virtual place. It need not be a physical place. It started off as a physical place, but it could be a virtual place where you go and you interact with people. You maybe have a discussion. You maybe learn something new. You work on a project together. So all of these are possibilities of what we can all do together.
Wow. I mean,
So we do participate in conferences, and maybe I'll invite you for a panel discussion at some point. We do have panel discussions with school leadership and all of that. And from a value leadership perspective, we could, they're a very important component, of course.
well, so much to learn. And again, Girish, I'm privileged to have heard all this. And to those who are out there, if you have more questions, we can always have another session. And definitely, I will give all of Girish's links, what they do, the Curiosity Gym, and the links to the programs they have for colleges. Same thing with my links. And if there's more interest, we can always come back together and do some more things. Thanks again, Girish. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Shankar. Thank you so much.
Stay in touch.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.